Well, it's another Friday, and it's another prime opportunity to get weird together, and we have surely done that today. I'm already there. I've been getting weird for like hours now. Okay? Like, it occurs to me preparing for these videos that like the part that you guys don't see are the hours that I'm sitting here listening to like a sample like this just over and over and over again for hours, dropping effects in, changing all their settings, thinking, no, that didn't work, put in a new effect, no, that didn't work, well, maybe I should combine it with this and that, yes, no, maybe I should swap out the sample, just for hours, okay? And then, by the time I'm ready to make these videos, I sit back and take my headphones off and think, wow, like I've sat there for 2 hours just listening to over and over again, and it's like making these videos I find to be a lot of fun because it brings me to a lot of strange places musically, which is a great exercise for any individual. But also I worry because I'd like to think that all the videos I make for you guys are something that's worth the watch, and to be honest, if you guys weren't emailing me saying, oh, I love these videos, please keep doing them, I would totally not be doing these videos, because to me it's like, well, what are you getting out of this really, other than watching me be weird inside a Bitwig? And so it's good to know that you guys, for the most part, enjoy these videos, and I'll keep doing them because, you know, it's all about you guys, and I just want to give you stuff that you want to see. But I'm just saying, it's weird. It's like at some point amidst me dropping effects in and out, just doing weird stuff inside a Bitwig, my brain goes, oh, that's good. That's a viable product. We'll stop there, right? Like, oh, the viewers are that's gonna get all kinds of views. Right? Like, what kind of voodoo magic takes over my brain and stops me in the middle of these hours of sample listening and goes, oh, there it is. Yeah, that's good. Right? Ah, well, it doesn't matter. Let me show you what I've done. Okay? You're gonna like it, I think. This is a good one. I find it pretty interesting. It brought me to some strange places, and and now I've come out with something that's pretty interesting. All right, let's start the show. Okay, before I play this, and I will play it soon, just so you can hear what we're talking about, let me explain what my methodology was behind this. Okay, essentially, I wanted to create a pad out of a snare drum. I don't know really why I wanted to do that. I just thought it was a good challenge. So I threw a snare drum sample in there, and I wanted to turn it into a bar full of sound that pumps and breathes, has a rhythmic pattern to it, and is also a pad. And that was just kind of the challenge I created for myself, okay? And then I augmented that with a real drum pattern here. And there's some, there's my AVA auto hats, which I've created in a different video, and you should totally watch that video because this is the best way that I have found to program hi-hats in any pattern that you want to do it. Okay? All right, so again, I just took a snare and I created a pad out of it, and I just wanted to make a flowing, rhythmic, bopping kind of feel to it. All right, let's have a listen. So yeah, it's maybe not the most beautiful sounding thing ever, but you can see that it's the principle is sound, and by that I mean that basically my goal of taking something short, creating a rhythmic pad out of it, augmenting that rhythmic pattern with a real 4 on the floor drum pattern, and then adding in 2 instances of hi-hats and stuff like that, kind of creates this interesting pattern that kind of asks you to bop your head to it. And then furthermore, I create suspension and release with just a really simple sub bass line. Look, it's a single note and it goes up, down, and up. And then that's just, it sounds like the intro of a song. And I'm sure a lot of you, like me, have heard this the first time and thought, oh, okay, I can do a ton of, I can work with that. Like and honestly, I could make a full song out of that just by shifting around these patterns. And the other goal that I had was that I wanted it so that it could transition from one kind of segment to the next without any harsh transitions, at least for the first while. That's why I wanted everything kind of mapped to knobs like feedback and to macros that for whatever reason they call themselves amplitude, and that's it. So that way, when I really do switch the section of the song to, like, say, a chorus of some kind, or I bring it up for a lift in the key or something like that, then it's really noticeable. The contrast is greater, and that's what it's all about. Really, is in music is creating tension and relief and contrast between, like, a juxtaposition between parts of the song, whether it's loud and quiet, slow and fast, minor key, major key, or vice versa. And you know what I mean. We all know these little tricks. And so basically, that's why I'm saying that the technique behind this is sound, even though this might not be the most sonically appealing thing to listen to. So how did I achieve this? Well, I took this snare drum pattern, and again, let's just give it a listen. And aside from me listening to that for 2 hours straight, I added a delay because in my mind it made sense that if I add a delay, then at least I'm getting sound throughout the entire bar, which is key because then you can work with it, right? At least then that sound exists elsewhere in the bar and it's just not one instance. Okay, and then I thought maybe I'll saturate it with reverb, but instead what I did was I made it so that the feedback effects, so they're like, by that I mean the repeats of the original sound are going to go through a tree monster and a resonator bank. Tree monster is an insane ring modulator. We've seen that before in my channel, and there's a lot of resources online that kind of depict this, but really it's just a wildly unpredictable ring modulator. The resonator bank, if you watched my video on resonator banks, we created this A note. So we're essentially we tuned the resonator bank to A440, and in that way it pushed up all the A note harmonics. Okay, I basically took that and lowered it by 20 hertz, and that's it. That's all I did with this guy. Mixes are full, and that's how you get this sound like this. But you can see how it gets wildly out of control when I bring up the feedback all the way. So sure, on one hand, I've achieved the goal of filling the entire bar out with that sound, and it's a different sound, and I'm not using a reverb. Sure, that's fine and well, but it gets way, way out of control. So I added a tool. And I turned the amplitude on the tool all the way down, the minimum being minus 36 dB, which is pretty damn significant. And I created a dummy sidechain that happens to play on all the upstrokes, okay? All the ands, like opposite to what a 4 on the floor would do, right? If this is a 4 on the floor, then these are the upstrokes of that, okay? And I've just muted it and turned it down because I don't want to actually hear it. And I've used that to sidechain on my tool here. So every time it picks up that sound, it turns the amplitude from minus 36 to 0 and back down. So that way it manages how out of control the feedback setting gets on my delay. Okay? All right, so let's listen to that. Oh, should probably turn this up. Okay, so it's managing how out of control the delay gets. Okay, and lastly, I put on a step mod, and this is straight up out of a preset. This one is called stepped feedback, and you in all likelihood will have that, but you'll both have this device and you'll have that preset, and so there you go. And of course, as always, you have your peak limiter there. Okay. All right. So, and that's just protection, because when you screw around with a lot of devices, you want to know that you're not going to clip too hard, right? Like, I mean, clipping is one thing, but you just throw a peak limiter there just to make yourself safe. And so this is the sound that we've created by adding that step mod in. And it's interesting because as I bring up this feedback, the original sound kind of disappears, and all these insane repeats of Tree Monster, Resonator Banky, Step Moddy stuff really shine through. And because of this dummy sidechain chained to an upstroke tempo or upstroke rhythm pattern here, you get this really cool kind of beat and pattern. And then just by listening to that alone, your brain goes, well, I want a drum beat now. And so we give the listener a drum beat, a 4 on the floor drum beat, and we start it unexpectedly, because now you're used to the pattern playing in upstrokes, but your brain doesn't know where it starts and where it ends. So your brain automatically thinks it starts on here, making this 4 on the floor. But then when we add in the drums, you realize that, oh, I've been listening to upstrokes the whole time, and that just creates interest in the rhythm. Okay, maybe not for you, but it does for me. Anyway, okay, here we have one instance of my AV8 auto hats, and you should watch the video I created on fast hats, because basically now anytime I need hi-hats in my song, I draw a single note as long as I need hi-hats in my song, and then I have these controls here to change the rhythmic pattern of it between triplets, and I can humanize it or not, and I can change how fast they play and all kinds of stuff. Okay, and so that's all that is just my AVA auto hats. And then on there I added another chain, and basically what I've done is added a replacer tool, which essentially takes the original sound, replaces it with another sound. And so I mapped an LFO to the mix of that, so that every once in a while it replaces the hi-hat sound with whatever's in the generator, and what's in the generator is an electronic clap synth. Okay, so basically, yeah, every time the LFO spikes, it goes up and replaces the sound with a clap, and then back down to the original hi-hats. Okay, and then of course I have my reverb, which is fully wet right now. It's completely saturated, but I've made a macro here that is mapped so that as I turn this up, it brings the amplitude of a tool up, right? So that it comes into volume, but it brings the reverb down a little bit. And what that did for me was make it sound like you were kind of standing in a tunnel, and whatever the sound was is approaching you. So let's have a listen to that right now. So it's super far away, lots of reverb, and very quiet. And now it gets closer to you. A little more clear because the reverb is diminishing, and the sound is getting louder. If I do this again, what I would probably do is also add in a filter and map this to the opening of the filter. So as it gets closer to you, the filter opens, and that just underlines more of that kind of going from far to near sound. Okay. Okay, after that, I brought in a drum machine. Basic 4 on the floor pattern. You can see here it's kick, kick, snare, clap, kick, snare, clap on the quarter notes. Nothing special happening there. It's my own drum kit, and actually this is something that you will like. You should go to the Bitwig website and download this Poly Ultimate Kick. It's great. I love it. Okay, and it's a synth kick, like an electronic kick and snare, but it's just got a lot of tools for screwing around with the kick and snare sound, and it's super cool. It's totally free. Bitwig's giving it away, and let me just see what it's called. If I click plus, presets, drums, Poly Ultimate Kick and Poly Ultimate Snare. You can probably type that into Google and find a place to download it, and I just highly recommend that you do, because I'm starting to love those two things. And so I've made a drum rack with it in there, along with my hat selector and my clap selector, which is basically a 128 like you're familiar with if you're an Ableton user, but the Bitwig version. Okay, and I have a video on how to make those too if you're interested. And if you haven't made those, I recommend that you do, because it is way easier to cycle through all your samples. Okay, so this is just a basic drum pattern. And I'll probably change out some of those samples too to make it a little bit more appealing. Here is the second instance of my auto hats. Nothing fancy going on here. I will say that it's just you know, the way my auto hats work. I just bring them in, I draw the line out, and then I find the pattern that I want, or I automate a pattern out of the hi-hats that I want. The only funny thing that I did was I took the E-hat synth that's making the sound, added an LFO, let's see, a bar long LFO, and then I mapped it so that it brings up the mix and the feedback and decay. See that slight little bit of decay on a comb filter, and also the decay knob there, and it just creates a little bit of interesting movement. And the reason I did that is because this is always in a bar pattern. Let's have a listen. So every bar, it kind of creates this little, just a hint of something different. And it's neat because even if I change this pattern and bring it up, it doesn't matter what I do to this rhythmic pattern, this is always going by a bar. So it creates, again, this contrast between a bar long pattern and my hi-hat like insane pattern. Whether I'm on 30 seconds, 64s, triplets, whatever, doesn't matter. It's always following this bar long pattern. And so to the human listener, it's this weird opposition between a bar long pattern and then the crazy kind of pattern that's happening with the actual playback of the hi-hat. And I thought that was just an interesting, cool way. It just creates interest in rhythm is all I'm saying. Okay, all right, here is just my sub bass. You all know my sub bass. I load it up, I throw in a note, and I tweak around with these a little bit, make sure they're all on the right octave, and that's all it is. And I chose a note that was a little bit suspenseful compared to this note, so that when we got there, so let's listen to this one. You get that little bit of sense of relief, okay? Because again, it's about creating tension and release inside music. And I just wanted it so that I could bring in a solid single note. Bass pattern is not changing much, and then you get a little bit of relief here, but also the claps disappear from the drum pattern, right? So it gets a little bit duller, but you're getting that release, and then when the tension comes back in, you get that clap back, and it's a little bit louder now. And that way, I'm setting myself up so that if I want to change into another major section of the song, I can have a more dynamic bass, I can have a harsher transition, maybe I drop some of these things and add some other stuff, and because everything is flowed so smooth beforehand, you're not really expecting the harsh transition into the next part or a dynamic sounding bass. And that again creates contrast between the rhythmic pattern, the tension and release, the bass pattern, and the way that it's kind of flowing through the song. And again, that just helps to create interest in the song to begin with. And so I'll say this, I'm not talking as if this song is going to be the greatest thing in the world. It's just that the principles here that we've used and adapted are principally sound. And so in general, you can take away from this feeling like maybe you gained a little bit of knowledge. Maybe you did. Maybe I didn't teach you anything at all. And if that's the case, well, I thank you for continuing to watch this video. But basically, in the end, I achieved my goals. I took a snare, a quick instant sound. I've made it into a pad that also has rhythmic, creates rhythmic interest, right? I've offset that with an actual drum kit, but not in the way that you expected, because your ear wanted a drum kit, and I gave you a drum kit, just not in the way that you expected to hear it. And then of course, my AVA auto hats just to create like a background strange pattern, and then I created more rhythmic interest by just mapping a bar long LFO to some of the comb filter settings there, and then I created tension and release with the sub bass pattern there. Okay, so I set out my goal and I achieved them, I think, and so now we can just kind of play with this song and see what we come up with. And if I turn this into a song, of course, I'll take these sections once I'm done and load them into the clip launcher, and that is after I've gone and automated a lot of stuff and flowed through it all. Okay, All right, guys, thank you very much for subscribing. I'll say that the outpouring of positive feedback and support from you guys is a singular experience for me. I thought when I started this channel, I was opening myself up to constant beratement, and I got thick skin. I can take that too, but I did not expect for you guys to be so supportive and such good-natured people, and that changed the way I see the world a little bit, I think. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's kind of true. And so thank you for that. I really appreciate it. My subscriber base is growing faster than I thought. And so if you'd like to be a subscriber, please do. And if you're already a subscriber, the most sincerest thank you to you. Really, I do appreciate that. Okay, leave comments down below. You can email me. I know some of you, some of us have a good correspondence going via email, and let's keep that up. And leave comments down below if you have suggestions for future videos. Let me know. I will try to make them for you. If you have any questions, I will answer them. Okay, so leave them down below. Email me, and I will answer them for you. All right, guys. Take care. Have a good weekend. I hope to see you soon again in one of these videos. And that's it. Go get weird in a weird way of your own. Ciao.